Welcome back to Let Me Drive. There's been some interesting news in the car world. So I want to start it off by one I'm really excited by personally. So it looks like Toyota and Mazda are combining efforts to introduce the next iteration of the MX-5 or Miata, as we know it in North America, and the GR86. Both obviously Japanese cars, both smaller, lighter, not as much power, but still very driver-centric type of vehicles. And so it's really exciting to that window of people that want to see the next iteration of this type of car, and having them combine efforts could be something that's really fascinating to watch and see over the next little bit. There's not a whole lot of news out on it yet. There's not a whole lot of information that's come out on it yet, but we know that the Miata is kind of near. I don't want to say near the end of its life cycle, but this version, so the ND Miata, started in 2016. So we're about 9, 10 years in now of this version of Miata, and so it'll be really cool to see what the next iteration looks like. There's rumors of it being electric. There's rumors of it having kind of obviously possibly a facelift. But I'm excited. I like the small rear wheel drive type of platform. It doesn't have to be a ton of power, in my opinion, because 95% of the time you're not going to use it. And so I'm really excited to see what this combination of the two companies brings to the next iteration of their platforms, because I think this is something that could be a big seller. Miata has historically been a pretty strong seller in its class. That class of car generally doesn't do well when comparing, to your typical car, but within that, the sports car, rear-wheel drive, convertible type of model, there is a lot of success there, and Miata has been a successfully selling car since it came out in 1990 and 1989, something like that. So lots of success there that they can pull on, and obviously Toyota has been a stable company for a very long time, and so it'll be interesting to see what they come together on and put out to the market. I'm a little biased, but I love the Miata personally. I've also had a couple of Toyotas in the past, and they've lasted forever. I had a Corolla that went to 431,000 kilometers, and it was running fine. I just couldn't afford at the time to do the brakes and the tires and all this sort of stuff to bring it up to safety standards, and so I got rid of it at 431,000 kilometers. But it probably had plenty of life left in it from an engine perspective. So the combination of those two types of companies coming together could be really exciting for the car world. What do we got next? The EV car world. So I'm not huge into EVs, but there's a lot of things happening in the EV world. So in the US, the federal tax credit is no more, and Canada's actually ended in early 2025. And so we saw the move away from government subsidizing the industry. And so that could have some interesting repercussions as to how much adoption there is in the EV world. Now, to most people in the car market, EVs make a lot of sense, right? It's less maintenance, probably less long-term cost on vehicle repairs. Most of the commutes are plenty fine. Most people aren't towing anything, and so you're usually trying to get from A to B, probably a work commute or the occasional road trip or what have you. And so the EV world makes a lot of sense, but EVs so far have been prohibitive in cost. You can get a cheaper internal combustion engine than you could get an EV, but governments were trying to incentivize this by adding subsidies, and so that both a lot of countries had EV tax credits in some way, shape, or form. And so we're seeing a move away from that in some major markets. So specifically, I'm talking about Canada and the US. Obviously, in China, they've kind of gone a different way. We'll get to that in a little bit. But Let me use a few examples here. So Hyundai Ioniq 5 in the US dropped almost 10,000 US dollars for 2026, which brings the starting price to about $36,000 approximately. That's a huge jump downwards. That's, what is that, 25% approximately? Obviously, you don't see a lot of cars getting cheaper in price, and so this is a signal. It could be a combination of things. Manufacturers are recognizing the move away from tax credits. There's probably a lot more inventory than they expected. The market as it is, there is probably people holding on to their cars longer than they normally would, and so companies aren't selling and they're not seeing as much revenue as they thought they might. So they're making this move via price to incentivize people to get into their cars ultimately. And so that's Hyundai moving $10,000, 10,000 American dollars down. Again, that's a big drop. And you'll find that this is not uncommon across other manufacturers. In Canada, the Volkswagen ID Buzz, so the cool retro-looking van, is dropping 21,000 Canadian dollars for cash buyers. When this came out, it was before it came out, it was pretty hyped up. Like people were really excited to see this retro van coming back. And so the issue is it came out so expensive that I think I've seen maybe 2 or 3 on the road, and that's just not a reasonable revenue marker for some of these companies. And so in Canada, I think you're getting into it at $80,000, $90,000, and it's just a retro van. Like it's cool, it looks cool, but there's just so much money for what is effectively a van that doesn't have a lot of range from an EV perspective. And so they're dropping $21,000. I assume it'll be across markets, but it goes from 78,000 starting point to just below $60,000. So you can imagine what's happening behind the scenes from a financial perspective at Volkswagen, and kind of recognizing these numbers to make these significant moves. Just as we saw Hyundai dropping 25%, this is approximately a similar percentage point. BMW is dropping a bunch of their EVs by $7,500, but in kind of like a purchase credit. Polestar is dropping their SUV, I believe, by $20,000 in the Canadian market as well. And so you can just start to kind of see some of these trends coming into play. It could be a combination, again, of the tax credits being removed. It could be that they're not seeing the revenue numbers that they'd like to see in these cars that they've probably sunk a lot of R&D dollars into. And so you're starting to see some of these moves. There's also a fascinating part that I see from an economical perspective, where we've always been told that brand new cars have such low margins. Now, these cars are dropping 20-25%. How could there be that much buffer for these new cars for them to easily be able to drop this much in cost, and I assume still make some sort of profit on the back end? In totality, so across global numbers, EV car sales grew by 25% worldwide, and only 6% in North America. Now, North America here is considered Canada and the US. Obviously, North America has a lot more countries in that classification. Fun fact, North America is I think 20 countries. I didn't know that, but anyway, whatever. So back to the global numbers. So globally, the EV world is expanding quite rapidly. Canada and the US, just 6% increase. Something to keep an eye on over the next little while. We know gas is continuing to increase in price. We know that it's a finite supply. And so obviously this is the way the world is going, and it's just trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Another more positive thing for the EV world is the Chevy Bolt is getting relaunched again under 30,000 American dollars, which is a great price point for any vehicle nowadays, let alone an EV car. There's going to be new Tesla Model 3 and Tesla Model Ys that are cheaper versions of the typical type of 3 and Y. And so as from a consumer perspective, this increase in competition, these decreases in prices from all types of manufacturers across the EV spectrum, this is only great for consumers. So it'll be really cool over the next little while to see what happens in that market. Next, I got to talk about the car developments in China. We've seen snippets all over the place, at least in Canada and the US. We've seen snippets of just the amazing things that these cars are doing and the numbers that they're putting up at the price points that they have. And so one of the more notable ones that's come out is the Yangwang U9 Extreme hit 495 kilometers an hour, which is 308 miles an hour, to become the world's fastest ever production car. That's such a mind-boggling number. That is half the speed of a Boeing 737 at cruising. And this is a road car that you can buy and just take out on the road with arguably no training on how to drive a vehicle of that capability. And so I think about these things and what it could mean long term. Obviously, technology is progressing all the time. And so this isn't even like, it's not like cars are going to stop getting that powerful. And so this is going to be a continuous thing. I always think of the Hummer EV when it came out, and this 10,000 pound vehicle can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And this is just a 10,000 pound missile on the street, probably driven by regular people, regular families. And so these things are just, think about how it will affect just kind of like the typical commute or just typical living. There's going to be some gnarly accidents with that type of power and that type of speed. And so, interestingly, it's one of the more expensive supercars coming out of China. I'll consider this a supercar, a hypercar, whatever you want to call it. But it starts at the equivalent of $230,000 US, or 325,000 Canadian dollars. And so it's one of the more expensive Chinese offerings. But man, that's 500 kilometers an hour basically. That's unreal to me, that hypothetically you can go to a dealer, buy this car, and you just get the keys and you go. And you hope you don't get disintegrated at an accident, but you probably would. Anyway, another thing. So Koenigsegg is looking to make a sports car that is quote unquote more attainable for the mass. Oh, I don't know if it's for the masses necessarily, but today the average Koenigsegg car is starts at like 3 million American dollars. And so I'm really curious what more attainable means. I'm gonna assume it is maybe high-end Porsche, maybe Lamborghini, Ferrari type of money. So probably several $100,000 to get into that market versus $2 to $3 million for a consumer. And so I think that's probably where the target might be, but it's still an early thing that's come out, so there's still not really too much data on it and what that could potentially look like. As an aside, as I kind of talk in that world, the new 911 Turbo, the Porsche 911 Turbo just got introduced not too long ago, and that's hitting like 300 grand American. And so getting, that type of car is moving up, while Koenigsegg is looking to kind of bring some of their price points down, just to kind of get away from, just to add to the hypercar market. So it could be a really cool fusion to see what they do in terms of next steps. Again, I'm just speculating. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. I don't think there's been that much news shared on what it could be. There's probably not even a model in place to even figure out what some of those numbers look like. But it is a cool market that could be that could have some future introductions from Koenigsegg. Interestingly, the founder, so Christian von Koenigsegg, I believe, he has and regularly drives the first Mazda Miata, and so he loves that car. And I think there's just something about that car. You've heard me say it in videos before, but there's something about the Miata that's just really incredible. Kind of that lightweight, small package form. Anyway, whatever. I don't want to go off too much of a tangent there. So, those are some of the big car news car news pieces over the last little bit around the world. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, but I don't want to get this video to be too long. I'm keeping an eye out on the market for myself and just kind of seeing what's out there. No surprise, I'd love to get another Miata, just kind of keeping an eye out on that market as well. I want either the NA, the NB, and kind of maybe the ND a little bit, but they're all incredible cars. So keeping an eye out on that, keeping an eye out on a couple of older Mercedes AMG type vehicles. And man, if I could get a 911 turbo, the 996 or the 997 models, that would be something that I would be all about. And so that's kind of future thinking, but that's what I'm looking to do over the next little while. If you want to subscribe, if you like what you're hearing, if you want to see more of these updates, let me know. And I'll see you when I see you on the next one. Take care.